Okay, good afternoon. Please take your seats. Then we once again call to order the meeting of the General Committee on Political Affairs and Security. And colleagues, the agenda for this meeting has been distributed. Could I please invite you to adopt the agenda? No objections? Then the agenda is adopted. And may I remind colleagues that the election of committee officers for the 22nd annual session of the Assembly will take place during the committee's final session tomorrow morning. Nominations for candidates for election should be handed in to the table office no later than the start of that session at 11:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. And we will now continue our consideration of the supplementary items, and we will continue to place a 3-minute limit on speakers in the debate. So we now go on to, excuse me. We now go on to the draft resolution on Iran's nuclear program. I call on Mr. Chaudhry from Norway to introduce the draft resolution. Mr. Chaudhry.
Honorable Chair, dear colleagues, I would like to make some brief comments to the draft resolution you have before you. Nuclear weapons remain the most lethal and destructive device that mankind had invented. Several countries have reduced or eliminated their nuclear arsenals, which is very positive. Despite these developments, we should not forget that the world is still nuclear weapon infested. Our objective should be to make it nuclear weapon free. Iran's nuclear program is one of the largest threats to the international efforts for nuclear disarmament. It is not only a threat to the neighboring countries and countries in the region, but also to OSCE countries. It is therefore imperative that we and our governments put pressure on Iran. Iran must fulfill its international obligations under the NPT. But despite all the concerns we have, our efforts to solve the crisis must be non-violent. No diplomatic effort must be spared to stop Iran from acquiring nuclear weapon capacity. And it's crucial that we do not accept the logic of those who advocate a preemptive strike or other forms of military response. Weapons shall not be fought with weapons. Evil shall not be fought with evil. A war will have severe consequences, first and foremost for women and children, and those are the weakest in any society. An attack would most likely have serious negative consequences with potential to further destabilize an already fragile region. It is also doubtful if it would strengthen Iran's democratic forces. On the contrary, an attack would be used by the regime to bolster its own position, hardly a desirable scenario. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, the resolution is an attempt to put spotlight on the serious threat to the security of countries. I hope you will support my resolution so that we together can send a strong signal to relevant actors. Thank you.
Thank you. The debate on the draft resolution is now open, and as we did before, the speakers list will close after the end of the first contribution. And I call Mr. Garbowski from Poland.
Thank you, dear colleague. First of all, I would like to congratulate Ms. Schauder of his working resulting in this resolution being considered today. It's valuable in depth into the process of strengthening of international opinion, cohesion or essential problem concentrating the global order and security. Expressions include in this resolution show the deep concern of our Assembly about the development of Iran nuclear program. Today we have the unique opportunity to create the additional platform of unity of view in this case. Iran and the West have been at odds over Iran nuclear program for years. In fact, it's one of the most polarizing issues. Unfortunately, we witness only rounds of talks but little progress. The previous round of negotiation over Iran nuclear program broke down over a year ago. But facing tough economic sanctions adopted by the United States and Europe, Iran signaled readiness to resume talks, but under rather unclear terms. Some Western diplomats consider it as a fair to buy time, allowing the country to enrich more uranium as talks get underway. Whatever real intentions are, the truth is the successive rounds of negotiation often called as last chance talks, and with moderate results. I don't try to diminish efforts, but into talks between Iran and the group 5+1. But I think the termination of nuclear negotiation with the beginning of a difficult, a complicated process of assessment and analyzing at the same is just not enough. The outlooks for this one of the world mass unstable regions in uncertain until the only result of talks is fixing a possible date of the next experts meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the speakers list is closed, and we have Mr. Allison from Canada, Mr. Liepins from Latvia, and Mr. Koerhoven from Netherlands. Have we missed anyone?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just a minute. Have we missed anyone? No, we haven't. Then the speakers list is closed, and I give the word to Mr. Allison from Canada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to also congratulate Mr. Chaudhry on this supplementary item and for bringing this important matter to the attention of our Assembly. I would like to add to the debate and share with you some additional thoughts. The efforts undertaken by the international community and by the IAEA to make Iran fully comply with its obligations under relevant conventions and resolutions of the UN Security Council and to meet the requirements set by the International Atomic Energy Agency are vital and need to be sustained in order to achieve a diplomatic solution. It is regrettable that Iran's past behavior in the years of impasse concerning its nuclear activities, specifically its enrichment and reprocessing activities, has led to a situation that significantly threatens regional and international commitments regarding nuclear non-proliferation and, consequence, regional and international peace and security. Canada shares these concerns. It supports the P5+1 process and has actively supported sanctions imposed by the UN Security Council. Canada has also implemented its own sanctions against Iran. Our sanctions are among the world's toughest and, among other things, prohibit exporting arms and items used in refining oil and gas to Iran, and items that could contribute to Iran's proliferation activities. Since 2003, Canada has been a co-sponsor of an annual United Nations General Assembly resolution on the human rights situation in Iran. The latest resolution in 2011 was supported by 89 countries, with 30 voting against and 64 abstentions. This was the largest margin in the 9 times that a General Assembly resolution on human rights conditions in Iran has been approved. For its part, the Parliament of Canada has also taken action where Iran is concerned. Notably, in February earlier this year, over 30 senators delivered speeches condemning the violation of human rights of individual Iranians, including lawyers, human rights activists, journalists, and Canadians who have been subjected to the use of torture and have been unlawfully incarcerated as political prisoners. The House of Commons also debated the state of human rights in Iran several weeks ago in May, in which a number of parliamentarians participated. The Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Trade is currently studying the situation in Iran, including its nuclear program, its human rights situation, and their implications for regional and international peace. This study follows the report of the House.
Excuse me, can you slow down? The
Sure.
interpreters have some problems.
This study follows the report by the House of Commons Subcommittee on International Human Rights on human rights violations in Iran. All this is to say that continued attention and pressures from all of us, whether by way of diplomatic negotiations, sanctions, or scrutiny by the IAEA, and by resolutions such as this, will send a strong message not only to the Iranian regime, but to its people who face many of the most egregious human rights violations on a daily basis. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Then I give the floor to Mr. Liepins from Latvia.
Thank you very much. We generally support this resolution and want to express our thanks to Mr. Chaudhry for introducing it. However, we have a slight problem with paragraph 11 with the word drastic measures. It seems to us that it's somewhat too broad, too vague. And if the sponsor could possibly either withdraw that particular paragraph or find more precise wording, we would be very happy to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I give the floor to Mr. Kwertenhoven from Netherlands.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the same problem. I'm very happy with the fact that the OSCE is now also involved with the issue, but I'm convinced that a military option should remain on the table in order to get Tehran to comply with the wishes of the international community. Also, the Dutch government, you should know, assumes this position. Therefore, I have to tell you that, much to my regret, I would have to vote against this resolution, again to my regret, if paragraph 11 is not cancelled or amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we are on our end our speakers list. Does Mr. Chaudhry wish to respond to the debate? Do you wish to respond to the debate?
Thank you very much for the support where I got the support, and I see that the comments on paragraph 11, I have deliberately used the word drastic, and so that it is open and include whatever we would think it could include. If we had said word only military or armed forces, it would then given us a smaller room. So I would stand on the text as it is.
Thank you. That concludes the debate on the draft resolution. Now we go on to the amendments. 3 amendments will be considered. And as before, we shall allow the proposer to speak for a maximum of 1 minute. Then we will allow the same time to an opponent of the amendment, and then we will ask the sponsor for his opinion. Amendment number 1, I call on Mr. Kovalev of Russia to propose amendment number 1.
Спасибо. Уважаемые коллеги, мы предлагаем в пункте 8 исключить слова «оказывать давление на Иран», чтобы побудить эту страну, и заменить их формулировкой «продолжать политико-дипломатическими средствами добиваться от Ирана» и далее по тексту. Нам представляется, что «оказывать давление» не совсем корректная формулировка. Прошу поддержать.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against amendment number 1? Mr. Liepens.
Sorry. There's a major omission in that case because that would rule out economic pressure, and which is one of the pressures that Iran could actually be influenced by.
Thank you. What is Mr. Chaudhry's opinion of the amendment?
Madam, I do not have any problem with with both texts. I'll accept both texts. The main point for me is that
Okay, there is no real recommendation from the rapporteur, but we still have a vote. Okay. Will all those in favor of amendment number 1 please raise their voting cards? Will all those against please raise their voting cards? Abstentions? Amendment number 1 is defeated. Then we go to amendment number 2, and I call on Mr. Garbowski of Poland to propose amendment number 2.
Thank you. In paragraph 10, I propose to change the word strongly into the word constructively. I think the word constructively better underlines the necessity of making every effort by the Iranian side to maintain the positive atmosphere of a started dialogue and elaborate permanent settlement of the problem mentioned in the paragraph. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak against amendment number 2? What is Mr. Chaudhry's opinion of the amendment?
I accept that, ma'am. It's good.
Thank you. Then we shall put amendment number 2 to the vote. Will all those in favor of amendment number 2 please raise their voting cards? Those against? Abstentions? Then amendment number 2 is adopted. And we go to amendment number 3, and I call on Mr. Kovalev of Russia to propose amendment number 3.
Мы предлагаем изложить пункт 11, о котором здесь уже упоминалось, в следующей редакции. Призывает государства-участники и государства-партнеры воздерживаться от угроз применения силы в отношении Ирана в связи с его ядерной программой. Поскольку применение угрозы, на наш взгляд, не совсем корректно с любой точки зрения, и с дипломатической, и с правовой точки зрения. Просил бы поддержать.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against amendment number 3? What is Mr. Chaudhry's opinion of the amendment?
I have no problem with the change, with the proposal, ma'am.
Okay, then we shall now put amendment number 3 to the vote. Will all those in favor of amendment number 3 please raise their voting cards?
No, wait.
All those against? Abstentions? I think
We have to count.
we have to count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again.
So we do it again. Will all those in favor of amendment number 3 please raise their voting cards? Then all those against will raise their voting cards. Okay, abstentions? Okay, 25 has voted for the amendment, 30 against. Then the amendment is defeated. Point of order from Canada.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, given the response from some of our colleagues about voting against this based on number 11, whether we could not seek to have a vote to have it removed as a paragraph.
Okay. We will take a separate vote on paragraph 11, and then we will take a vote on the whole resolution afterwards. Will all those in favor of paragraph 11 please raise their voting cards?
In favor of keeping.
Of
In
keeping
favor,
it. Sorry, in favor of keeping it.
Please. Okay.
Okay, all those against?
I'm sorry, Chair. Point of order.
Okay,
Point of order.
who is from Greece?
Yes. If I read correctly, there is no amendment proposing the deletion of paragraph 11. So, if there is any, there should be an oral amendment which have to be accepted unanimously to be put to vote. Otherwise, we cannot vote on that.
Yes. If there's
Our rule says that we can have a vote paragraph by paragraph. So if one member will have a vote for one paragraph, then we can take it without an amendment. I just have to check if that was understandable. Did you understand what I said? It says so in our rules, so it can be done. Yeah. Excuse me, I can't hear you. You have to use your
Are
microphone.
we going to vote for all paragraphs like that?
This is a rule we imply if one requests a separate vote for one paragraph. So we do this way. We vote for just for the 11, and then we vote for the rest afterwards. Yeah. Mr. Chaudhry?
Then, ma'am, as we understand in our delegation, in that case, it must be consensus on this oral amendment.
This is not an oral amendment. Our rule says that we can vote paragraph by paragraph if someone wants us to, and this is not an oral amendment. So we don't need, what's it called?
Consensus.
Consensus, that's the English word, yeah. It's difficult. Thank you.
No, then we vote on the. Or paragraph 11, yeah.
So if we go back to the vote, the voting said that paragraph 11 is defeated. Yeah. Okay? So now we're clear. Yeah. And now we do the rest of the draft resolution. Will all those in favor of the draft resolution please raise their voting cards? All those against? Abstentions? One abstention, I think. Okay. Then the draft resolution is adopted. Okay, we go on. We now come to the draft resolution enlarging the partnership with non-member Mediterranean states to include the Palestinian National Authority. And I call on Mr. Marshall to introduce the draft resolution.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, last November, Iceland recognized the Palestinian Authority as an independent country, the first Western European country to do so. The nation took a stand and supported the just fight for independence and the human rights of the Palestinian people. So the supplementary item I want to present to you today on enlarging the partnership with non-member Mediterranean states to include the Palestinian National Authority was greatly motivated by the recognition. The ongoing political turmoil in the Mediterranean region, particularly in the Arab world, calls for strengthening the Mediterranean partnership with main emphasis on the rule of law and human rights. Problems can and should be solved by bringing people together for discussion, and it's time we deepen our dialogue with the Arab countries. We all realize the need to reach a just and sustainable solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict, and only then can we foresee lasting peace and stability in the Middle East. Mutual transparency and confidence is of vital importance when it comes to relations between the OSCE and its Mediterranean partners. I therefore want to stress that international recognition of the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people is favorable to attaining peace in the region. OSCE Parliamentary Assembly has shown great interest in the Mediterranean region, as many conferences and meetings on the subject positively demonstrate. Still, I want to encourage further effort to strengthen the relationship between the partners for cooperation and the participating states in order to increase our ability to respond to new and traditional threats to security. Furthermore, it is worth noting that the UN assessment based on the report of the Office of the UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, according to which the Palestinian Authority is ready to govern a potential Palestinian state, as well as the latest assessment of the Office where it is stated that the Palestinian Authority has continued to realize progress in a range of different areas. I finally want to emphasize the importance for the OSCE to live up to the intense democratic changes going on in the Mediterranean region by association the Palestinian National Authority as a non-member partner. I therefore call upon the OSCE to grant the Palestinian National Authority the status of Mediterranean partner for cooperation following their request of November from 2004. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. The debate on the draft resolution is now open, and the speakers list will close after the end of the first contribution, and we do have a maximum of 3 minutes. Yeah. The first one is Mr. Juhl from Denmark.
Thank you. Especially thank you to Iceland making this very, very well done paper, the draft resolution. I think it's very important to see that Palestine in November 2004 have asked for to be a non-member partner. And I heard some of the delegates said, no, they don't have to be members of OSCE, and that's right. And they are not becoming members with this one resolution. They are becoming a non-member partner. In UN, they also are not members. They are on the lowest level of partners for UN. And they ask for number 2 or number 1 level later on in UN. And UNESCO said, okay, we could have a very good dialogue when the Palestinian authorities are members of UNESCO. And I find that's very interesting and very good if we want to make peace in Middle East. Dialogue is the main way of changing things in OSCE, and I find we have to use this possibility to help finding ways in this very, very old conflict. And I think when Israel is a non-member partner of OSCE, we have to say we want to strengthen the possibility to let the 2 equal parts negotiate. And if they are equal in OSCE, they have a little bit more possibility to stand in these negotiations. I also want to remind that they are really not equal. It's a very, very big and strong country in economy and military, Israel. And a lot of the members of OSCE helped Israel getting their own country after the Second World War. And I was very lucky that also Denmark was one of the first to recognize Israel as an independent country. And I was very proud that the Danish people also helped a lot of Jews getting away from Nazi Germany at that time. And the time is now that we also give the right to the Palestinian people. Some say, oh, they are electing wrong. They are electing the wrong people to represent them. But if we believe in democracy, every people have the right to elect their government or their representatives. And we cannot, we cannot accept that other people have to decide for us or for them what they want to elect. So I will say it's very important that we say yes to this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Then the speakers list is closed, and I will tell you who's on it. It's Mr. D'Amico from Italy, it's Mr. Belot from France, Mr. Cordosa from USA, Mr. Migliori from Italy, Mr. Wassat from France, Mr. Eiderholt, USA, Mr. Del Vecchio, Italy, Mr. Aberzadze from Israel, Mr. Van Kesteren from Canada, Mr. Voridis from Greece, Mrs. Barnett from Germany, and Mr. Georgiev from the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Okay, yes, that's why that's why I read the list, so we can make sure that everyone that will be on the list is on a list. So we take just a little break so we can change it.
Morocco.
Thank you. Now we added to our list Mr. Kurtenhofen from Netherlands, Mr. Herstedt from Sweden, and the gentleman from Morocco. We will find his name. Do we have everybody then? Do we miss someone? Okay, then the speakers list is closed. And we go on to Mr. D'Amico from Italy.
Grazie Presidente. Io ho letto questa risoluzione e ritengo che sia un grave errore se l'OSCE oggi, l'Assemblea parlamentare dell'OSCE oggi approverà questa risoluzione. E vi spiego perché ritengo che sia un grave errore. In primo luogo perché noi possiamo considerare quello che sta accadendo tra Palestina e Israele e quindi la discussione sulla creazione di due popoli, due stati, come una partita a carte, una partita a poker tra due contendenti. Da una parte la Palestina, da una parte Israele. Ognuno sta giocando delle carte per cercare di arrivare alla soluzione migliore. La partita però si gioca in due e già giocarla è un fatto importante. Alla fine ci sarà il finale della partita, probabilmente qualcuno potrà essere più contento dell'altro, però devono essere i due giocatori a giocare. Ecco, se noi interveniamo in questo modo è come se noi diamo a uno dei contendenti una nuova carta che tiene nel manico della giacca e che tira fuori per cercare di portare punti al suo gioco. E quindi noi dobbiamo in primo luogo essere sopra le parti, chiedere sì che ci sia pace, ma non prendere posizione per uno o per l'altro, perché se no andiamo a influenzare il processo che sta avvenendo tra due paesi. In secondo luogo sapete cosa succede se si approva questa risoluzione che permette a uno Stato che non è ancora uno Stato riconosciuto di entrare nella nostra associazione, nella nostra assemblea parlamentare? Che allora la prossima seduta ci potrebbe essere una risoluzione che chiede che la Transnistria venga ammessa come osservatore all'OSCE, un'altra che chiede che l'Abkhazia, che l'Ossetia del Sud, che magari i Paesi Baschi e magari anche la Scozia, perché sapete che in Scozia chiedono il referendum per l'indipendenza. E allora tutti i paesi che non sono riconosciuti potrebbero essere e venire qua a chiedere di essere ammessi all'OSCE. Quindi secondo me è un grosso errore anche procedurale quello di ammettere una risoluzione che è già stata bocciata l'anno scorso e viene riammessa e può creare un precedente molto pericoloso per la nostra associazione. Quindi noi dobbiamo bocciarla ancora prima di arrivare al merito, ma comunque anche sul merito sono contrario. Grazie.
Thank you. Then I give the floor to Mr. Belot from France.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Pour ma part, je voudrais remercier notre collègue islandais Robert Marshall pour avoir déposé un point additionnel sur ce sujet. Je veux croire qu'après les débats passionnés que nous avions eus l'an dernier sur ce thème, nous avons mis à profit le temps disponible pour réfléchir aux enjeux soulevés par l'octroi d'un tel statut. En ce qui me concerne, les récentes évolutions sont encore venues confirmer ma position. À mon sens, notre Assemblée devrait faire sien ce point additionnel pour au moins 3 raisons. Premièrement, les évolutions intervenues en Afrique du Nord et dans le monde arabe depuis plus d'1 an ont clairement révélé la soif de changement des peuples de cette région. Nous essayons d'ailleurs nous-mêmes depuis de réfléchir aux moyens dont nous disposons pour accompagner les transitions démocratiques. Nos débats autour du point additionnel de Jean-Charles Gardetto l'ont encore illustré ce matin. Or, le peuple palestinien a lui aussi pris sa part dans ce mouvement en faveur de la démocratie. En ce sens, étendre notre partenariat à l'autorité nationale palestinienne pourrait constituer un symbole fort de l'intérêt que porte notre Assemblée aux évolutions dans le monde arabe. Deuxièmement, je tiens à souligner que notre Assemblée ne serait pas la première à accorder un statut de ce type à l'autorité palestinienne. Je rappelle que comme l'Union interparlementaire, qui regroupe 160 pays, l'UNESCO lui a octroyé le statut de membre à part entière l'an dernier. L'autorité dispose du statut d'observateur au sein de l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies et le Conseil national palestinien s'est vu reconnaître le statut de partenaire pour la démocratie par l'Assemblée parlementaire du Conseil de l'Europe en octobre dernier. Si je peux comprendre que nous ayons pu avoir quelques réticences à initier un mouvement l'an dernier, ces dernières n'ont plus aujourd'hui de raison d'être. Troisièmement et enfin, le processus de paix israélo-palestinien est aujourd'hui dans l'impasse. Ce n'est pas une partie de cartes, c'est quelque chose de beaucoup plus sérieux. Reconnaître un statut de partenaire à l'autorité palestinienne ne nous permettrait-il pas d'apporter notre pierre à l'édifice ? En effet, nous vantons sans cesse les vertus de la diplomatie parlementaire et du dialogue. Aussi, il serait regrettable, alors que nous en avons la possibilité, de ne pas faciliter les échanges entre les parties israéliennes et palestiniennes. Nous devons permettre aux Palestiniens d'assister à nos travaux aux côtés de la délégation israélienne, les encourager à discuter entre eux de sujets d'intérêt commun afin de restaurer une certaine confiance. C'est aussi une manière d'offrir les conditions d'un échange équitable, fondé sur la notion d'égalité entre les deux parties, qui permettra à terme d'obtenir un accord définitif, juste et durable. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. And then I will give the floor to Mr. Cardoza from USA.
Thank you very much. I appreciate what the gentleman from Iceland is trying to achieve with his resolution, promoting a two-state solution and working to for further development of the Palestinian Authority. These are both goals which are worthy of support. However, there are very serious flaws with this resolution that make it impossible for me to give it my backing. First of all, this resolution endorses unilateral steps that the Palestinian Authority has taken to achieve statehood status at the United Nations, outside of a clear negotiated settlement with the country of Israel. The United States has been very clear about our position on this issue. Peace will only come when it is worked out between two parties. The resolution does not mention the critical fact that a cutthroat terrorist organization, Hamas, is in control of the Gaza Strip. How can we welcome the Palestinian Authority into this organization when the Palestinian people live under a divided government, one half of it run by brutal terrorists? Finally, this last May, the Palestinian Authority decided to accord full military burials for suicide bombers that struck down innocent people in Israeli cafes, shopping malls, and on buses. This glorification of murderers makes a mockery of the PA's claims that it can seek peace and coexistence with its Israeli neighbor, which transferred the deceased terrorist remains as a goodwill gesture. Peace can only be based on mutual confidence and mutual respect. The Palestinian Authority must end its blatant incitement and return to direct negotiations with Israel before it is granted partnership in this organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Then we move on to Mr. Migliore from Italy.
Signor Presidente e colleghi, anch'io voglio ringraziare i colleghi islandesi che abbiamo incontrato stamani per questa risoluzione, perché ci hanno aiutato ad approfondire anche con incontri che abbiamo avuto con la delegazione israeliana e la delegazione palestinese un argomento molto importante che già dibattemmo a Belgrado l'anno scorso. Io vorrei essere molto chiaro. Noi abbiamo in questo momento una fase espansiva della nostra organizzazione, questo è molto positivo. Semmai sarebbe meglio discuterne insieme, perché abbiamo gli amici della Mongolia che vogliono da partnership diventare membership. Abbiamo sentito ieri lo stesso per quel che riguarda il Regno del Marocco, e i libici ci hanno detto che vogliono entrare nella partnership e noi dobbiamo essere una porta aperta. Però dobbiamo valutare anche con grande attenzione gli effetti di ricaduta per quel che riguarda gli elementi di pace che siamo tutti chiamati a costruire in quell'area. Per evitare ogni tipo di equivoco voglio dire che il Presidente della Repubblica Italiana Napolitano alcuni mesi fa, in visita a Ramallah, ha deciso di considerare a rango di ambasciatore chi rappresentava storicamente l'autorità palestinese a Roma, a dimostrazione del fatto che non vi è alcuna pregiudizialità nei confronti dell'autorità palestinese. Il problema che ci poniamo oggi è diverso. Quali effetti sul piano bilaterale può determinare una scelta del genere? Non mi pare che le decisioni dell'UNESCO e del Consiglio d'Europa abbiano sortito effetti. La rivolta araba è questione diversa. Io penso che dovremmo avere anche rispetto per la democrazia palestinese. Fra 3 mesi la Palestina voterà, almeno si presume che voti, perché la situazione di Gaza è una situazione molto difficile e preoccupante, come la stessa autorità palestinese ci ricorda. Questi giorni sono a Gaza esponenti dell'OLP per tentare di ricostruire i registri elettorali che non esistono in quella realtà. Noi pensiamo che i tempi non siano totalmente maturi e non sia utile oggi questa decisione. Penso che la cosa più saggia sia quella di un rinvio di una decisione che pur dovremo prendere, perché dovremo lavorare affinché sotto il profilo bilaterale abbia sul serio una utilità questo riconoscimento. Io penso che a Tirana ci saranno gli amici palestinesi, penso che allora ci sarà la possibilità di un ulteriore confronto con gli amici israeliani, perché anche a questo serve la nostra Assemblea, ad essere una sede ed essere un confronto. Per questo, e chiudo signor Presidente, io ritengo, ma è una mia personale decisione, perché capisco che su questo argomento tutte le delegazioni e tutti i gruppi parlamentari possono avere idee diverse, che non sia il momento di approvare una scelta del genere.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Mr. Aderholt from United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in opposition to the resolution. I do believe, as I think my friend from Iceland would also agree, that in the positive contributions of the OSCE partners for the cooperation process, particularly in the time of regional transition. However, I believe the granting of partnership status to the Palestinian National Authority, as called for in this resolution, would jeopardize the partnership and should not be done so. Unfortunately, this resolution does not improve upon the language of a similar resolution that was defeated in 2011 at the Belgrade annual session. Once again, this resolution acknowledges a number of positive developments in the direction of a Palestinian state, but it does not offer practical initiatives to achieve this end. Without that end, the Palestinian National Authority remains a non-state without legal standing the OSCE requires for such cooperation. Last year, the PNA signed a Palestinian National Accord with Hamas aimed at developing a unity government with that organization. Yet the two entities are no closer today on a reconciliation than that denounces violence. Hamas remains designated designated as a terrorist organization by the U.S. and the European Union for embracing violence and calling for the destruction of Israel in the Hamas Charter. The infusion of such views in the OSCE would not constructively contribute to our partnership at this crucial juncture. It is my view any request by the PNA or the government or of a future Palestinian state that includes Hamas for a partnership with OSCE should be rejected unless Hamas recognizes Israel's right to exist and it publicly commits to the Quartet's principles for the peace process and the principles of the OSCE. Most importantly, granting partnership status would establish a dangerous precedent for entities seeking status as OSCE partners for cooperation or participating states. A number of protracted conflicts in the OSCE region have resulted in regional entities asserting independence without broad international recognition. Therefore, granting PNA partnership status may embolden other non-states to pursue status with the OSCE. And so I would urge my colleagues to defeat the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Mr. Del Vecchio from Italy.
Grazie signora Presidente. Intervengo come i colleghi su un argomento di notevole importanza, ricordando che questa Assemblea e in particolare questa Commissione ha affrontato nei 2 giorni di lavoro che abbiamo finora avuto delle tematiche proprio orientate alla sicurezza in un'area che sappiamo perfettamente essere molto difficile. Mi riferisco al Mediterraneo. Abbiamo avuto ieri una discussione sul partenariato per il Mediterraneo. Abbiamo avuto oggi una risoluzione che è stata approvata all'unanimità, presentata dall'onorevole Gardetto, che indicava come la nostra organizzazione debba operare affinché all'interno di quell'area possano essere superate tutte le difficoltà, tutti i contrasti, tutti i conflitti. Uno degli aspetti di questa risoluzione ricordava che la cosa più importante per eliminare queste difficoltà è il dialogo all'interno stesso delle realtà. In sostanza, in questi 2 giorni noi abbiamo detto che il principio morale e la capacità morale dell'OSCE vuole operare per garantire la sicurezza nel Mediterraneo. A questo punto, ecco, io non posso non dire che questa risoluzione mi sembra che vada lungo questa strada. Noi non riconosciamo con questa risoluzione alcunché che non sia la funzione di partner da parte dell'autorità palestinese. Diamo all'autorità palestinese, così come abbiamo fatto in altre circostanze e in altri casi, la possibilità di confrontarsi nell'ambito di un'assemblea che naturalmente può condurre la discussione e può cercare di superare le difficoltà. Mi preme qui ricordare, come hanno già fatto in precedenza altri membri della Commissione, che questo non è un fatto che non abbia avuto dei precedenti. L'Assemblea parlamentare del Consiglio d'Europa ha già approvato la partecipazione dell'autorità palestinese quale partner. L'UNESCO ha approvato già il suo inserimento all'interno dell'organizzazione quale membro effettivo. Quindi noi dobbiamo avere coraggio, noi dobbiamo effettivamente mettere in pratica la nostra volontà di intervenire in quell'area con i nostri sistemi democratici, con i nostri coinvolgimenti, rendendo possibile il confronto di idee all'interno di questa nostra Assemblea. Grazie.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Mrs. Abazadze from Israel.
Спасибо, госпожа председатель. Сегодня было принято решение по вопросу новых демократий в арабском мире, которое следует, безусловно, всячески приветствовать. Это решение свидетельствует о том, что перемены в регионе еще не завершены. И неизвестно, сколько это еще займет времени и когда они завершатся. Поэтому сейчас принимать решение о расширении группы государств Средиземноморского партнерства слишком рано, в особенности по отношению к палестинской автономии, не имеющей пока статуса государства. Мы надеемся, что такое государство будет создано. Однако принимать образование государством не являющееся противоречит принципам ОБСЕ. И мы надеемся, что здесь никто не заинтересован нарушать правила организации, в рамках которой мы все находимся и здесь заседаем. Усилия палестинцев на улучшение их статуса в международных организациях, направленные на получение международного признания как государства, ударят по принципу урегулирования конфликта путем создания двух государств. Ибо палестинцы добиваются признания государства и получения всех связанных с этим прав, не ведя переговоров, не делая уступок и не завершая конфликта. Иными словами, как тут было сказано моими коллегами, они хотят начать карточную игру, уже автоматически имея на руках все козыри. С нашей точки зрения, такие шаги только наносят урон мирному процессу, который должен привести к завершению конфликта путем прямых переговоров между двумя сторонами. Принятие решения здесь, сегодня, даст возможность палестинской автономии отойти от прямых переговоров с Израилем. В этой резолюции также не принимается во внимание тот факт, что у руководства палестинской автономии нет никакого влияния на сектор Газы, откуда ежедневно обстреливаются ракетами мирное население Израиля, и где властвует Хамас, признанный террористической организацией. Таким образом, и тут говорилось об открытой двери, но приняв эту резолюцию, вы откроете дверь для возможности того, что в ОБСЕ будут заседать представители террористической организации. Мы считаем, что последний, 26-й пункт резолюции – это и есть то решение, которое нам, парламентариям, следует принять здесь, в Монако, для истинного продвижения мирного процесса на Ближнем Востоке и для ведения диалога между сторонами. Спасибо.
Thank you. I now pass on the floor to Mr. Van Kesteren from Canada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, this issue was brought up to this Assembly last year, and I believe last year we got it right. First of all, let me state emphatically that Canada recognizes the Palestinian right to self-determination and supports the creation of a sovereign, independent, viable, democratic, and territorial contiguous Palestinian state as part of a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace settlement. However, having the Palestinian National Authority turned into an OSCE Mediterranean partner state would only serve to politicize the OSCE and likely lead to campaigns in other parts of our regions where a handful of countries would argue for a disputed territory should be the newest state to join the OSCE. It would be wiser to encourage the OSCE and our foreign ministries to invest more in the current partnership programs. The OSCE Partnership Fund was created in 2008 expressly for this sort of work in the Mediterranean region. Unfortunately, in 2011, the very year when so much attention was focused on the Arab Spring, the OSCE Partnership Fund received less than 35,000 euros, a 92% drop in 3 years. Canada's Foreign Minister John Baird stated last year Canada's position. Unilateral Palestinian efforts to seek member or observer state status in the UN, UNESCO, and other international organizations without a negotiated peace settlement with Israel are ultimately unhelpful. Canada is committed to the goal of a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace in the Middle East, and Canada again urges the parties to resume direct peace talks. For these reasons, we believe it would be unhelpful for this Assembly to adopt this item. Thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Mr. Vouridis from Greece.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me point out what I think there is a contradiction inside this resolution. On the one hand, the resolution accepts that it wants to promote the two-state solution to this particular problem. But on the other hand, how can we arrive at such a goal? There is only one way. The way is that Palestinians and Israelis talk among them in order to resolve all issues concerning the state entities. As we all know from basic political theory, you have a state when the territory is described and when you have sovereignty over that territory. This will not be resolved unless Palestinians and Israelis sit on a table and resolve that. Now, the strategy into that resolution, and that's the strategy followed by the Palestinian Authority, is to go to international organizations trying to achieve a membership or a partnership status, and by that trying to say that actually they do have the state status. But of course, this will not work, and it is subversive. It cancels the main purpose, and this is a message that should be, in my view, should be sent from that parliamentary assembly. There is no solution in that strategy. This strategy is subversive to the main idea that should prevail, and that idea is that in order to have a two-state solution, Israelis and Palestinians must talk among them.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Mrs. Bonnet from Germany.
Vielen Dank, Frau Vorsitzende. Es wurde schon vieles Richtige zu dieser Resolution gesagt, die ja gut gemeint ist. Und keiner, der hier sitzt, würde behaupten, dass er nicht interessiert ist an einer baldigen friedlichen Lösung im Nahen Osten. Ich glaube allerdings, dass wir mit dieser Resolution da nicht besonders hilfreich sind. Es wurde schon richtig festgestellt. Es gibt immer noch keine Anerkennung des Staates Israel durch die Hamas. Und die Hamas hat immer noch nicht aufgehört, Selbstmordattentäter nach Israel zu schicken. Es wurde gesagt, also Israel ist der einzige demokratische Staat in der Region. Und deswegen sind auch die palästinensischen Autonomiebehörden kein gleichwertiger Partner. Da fehlt es an allem. Wir haben gehört, kein Staat, keine entsprechende demokratische Legitimation und so weiter, kein Rechtsstatus. Die Friedensbemühungen zwischen den beiden Staaten müssen von den beiden Staaten ausgehen. Wir können nichts von außen aufoktroyieren. Da habe ich auch meine großen Bedenken, dass wenn wir so den Schleier, wir meinen es ja gut mit euch, um die beiden Staaten legen, dass dann alles läuft, dass dann plötzlich der Dialog losbricht, der eigentlich schon seit Jahr und Tag hätte passieren können. Wir schreiben dem palästinensischen Volk auch nicht vor, wen es zu wählen hat. Aber wenn die sich Vertreter wählen, die das Existenzrecht eines anderen Staates und dessen Menschen verneint und sagt, die müssen ausradiert werden, wir akzeptieren das nicht, kann das für unsere Organisation nie und nimmer ein Partner sein, nicht mal ein wie es hier heißt, Non-Member-Partner. Nicht einmal das. Das geht mir als Demokrat viel zu weit. Und wir können es uns deswegen nicht erlauben, irgendwelche Regelveränderungen unserer Organisation dann über die Hintertür auf diese Weise hinzunehmen. Und ich bitte auch die Vertreter des palästinensischen Legislativrates, die uns hier ihr Papier verteilt haben, doch zu bedenken. Wenn Sie uns hier ein Papier geben, in dem es heißt, it calls on us as well as on Israel to take seriously the role of partnership and to engage in good faith. Ja, wenn die, um Gottes Willen, wenn die sich in good faith, also in Vertrauen miteinander auseinandersetzen wollen, warum anerkennen sie bis heute nicht den Staat Israel? Da ist der große Widerspruch bei der palästinensischen Autonomiebehörde selbst. Und wenn die palästinensische Autonomiebehörde uns dann auch verspricht, dass mit der Anerkennung dieses Non-Member-Partners auch die Sicherheit in Europa verbessert wird, dann habe ich auch Bedenken, was das soll. Also das braucht man uns nicht zu sagen. Wir tun alles und unterstützen alles, was den Frieden und den Fortschritt dieser Bemühungen im Nahen Osten vorantreibt. Aber bitte jetzt erst einmal untereinander klar werden, vor allem Anerkennung von Israel.
Thank you. And before we move further on our speakers list, we have a point of order from Mr. Campagna from Italy.
Grazie signora Presidente. Sulla base del dibattito che abbiamo finora ascoltato, mi sembra opportuno chiedere ai colleghi e agli amici della delegazione islandese di prendere in considerazione l'opportunità di ritirare questo supplementary item. Non lo dico soltanto perché nel nostro dibattito ci sono posizioni diverse e molto articolate nell'ambito delle stesse delegazioni nazionali. Personalmente il mio non vuole essere l'ennesimo intervento di un delegato italiano. So benissimo che per il nostro regolamento ci vogliono i 2/3 per ottenere il rinvio di un supplementary item. Però mi pare, alla luce delle considerazioni, a mio giudizio, efficaci e penetranti che faceva prima di me la collega della Germania, di pregare gli amici islandesi in questo spirito di accogliere questa mozione d'ordine. Il ritiro di questo supplementary item in questa Assemblea. Grazie.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall will have an opportunity to respond to the debate afterwards. So we now go on our speakers list to Mr. Georgiev from the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I'll vote against this resolution, and I would like to say a couple of reasons why. First, Madam Chairwoman, I would like to say a couple of words. First, voting in favor of this resolution will mean a positive signal for Hamas. And a positive signal for Hamas would mean a positive signal for an organization that is directly in its official documents, in its chapter, advocating for the destruction of the State of Israel, killing Jews, and basically the official charter of Hamas is a very genocidal document. Moreover, Hamas is an organization that supports killing civilians in buses. Hamas is an organization that is in favor and supports killing teenagers in front of discotheques. Hamas is an organization that supports killing people on main squares, in shopping malls, in squares. So do we want, dear delegates, to have Hamas representatives among us? Furthermore, I would kindly ask you to read the documents of Hamas. And Hamas is not a fringe element. Hamas is an organization that won the elections for the Palestinian Authority. Hamas denies Holocaust. I'll repeat once again, Hamas and its leaders are directly denying Holocaust. Do we want these representatives among us? I would like to say that I'm in favor of a two-state solution, Jewish state and a Palestinian state living peacefully side by side. I'm supporting the Palestinian right of self-determination, but that needs to be done in a legal framework. It needs to be done with the support of the international community, and it needs to be done in a proper way. So therefore, I'm supporting the discussion of the delegates from the United States of America, some of the Italian colleagues, the German colleagues, Canadian colleagues, and the others. So once again, yes for the Palestinian statehood, yes for the human rights, yes for national self-determination, but no for the terrorist activities of Hamas, and no for the genocidal agenda and Holocaust-denying agenda of Hamas. Thank you.
Thank you. We now give the floor to Mr. Kortenhofen from Netherlands.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to hook up to the wise statements from our American colleagues and our colleagues from Canada, Greece, Germany, and Macedonia, especially where it concerns the possible inclusion of Hamas, a terrorist organization that wants to eradicate a member state of the OSCE. The inclusion of a member state of that organization in the OSCE. But I want to add this. It is obvious that the Palestinian Authority, which is in fact the PLO, is trying to upgrade its international status to the level of a state without coming to an agreement with the State of Israel first. In that context, UNESCO was recently used. The bitter irony is that an upgrade like this by the OSCE would jeopardize the prospects of peace. It would create a wrong assertiveness with the PA, the PLO, and with Hamas to use the international track in order to go for statehood by fait accompli. Madam Chair, this resolution is not helpful. It could be extremely harmful. Therefore, I reject this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. And we now give the floor to Mr. Hasted from Sweden.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say that it's quite interesting. We have the delegates of Palestine sitting up here next to the door up there. And if they would be elected non-member partnership, they would move five stools down. So they are already here. They are already in the building, and they are already amongst us. We are talking to them in the corridors, and we are discussing with them at the coffee place. So I'm also a member of the Council of Europe, where they were elected certain partnership. I think that the tone in the argumentation here is totally out of proportion. What we are talking about is to grant them an opportunity to have equal situation as some other partners here in this room today. It gives us an opportunity to influence them, to criticize them, to have a dialogue with them in a decent way. I have heard certain argumentation about repercussions and that we are jeopardizing. I don't exactly know what we jeopardize. I don't exactly know what we are what repercussions we are expecting. We will see whether they will be granted the non-member partnership here or not, but we will have the opportunity to follow their partnership with the Council of Europe. And I know that the same kind of tone in the argumentation was there before they was granted that kind of status. And we will see how harmful and how disastrous it will be after a year or two of that kind of partnership with Council of Europe. I'm sure that the tone is totally exaggerated. The occupation of Palestine have lasted for more than 60 years, and we now see upgrading of their status in many countries in Europe, amongst others my own. I heard about Italy and France, Spain, Ireland, Portugal, and many others. I think that's a signal from the governments that they will have an increased dialogue with the Palestinians, both criticizing them, well deserved in many ways, and we hear definitely areas where they should be criticized, but also in ways where they need support. I think they need to have an equal opportunity as Israel and some other partners here to make their voice heard. And that's where I and several others in my delegation will put our vote. Thanks.
Thank you. And I now give the floor to Mr. Abdesamed from Morocco.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais préciser tout d'abord qu'une telle décision de donner le statut de partenaire et non membre à l'autorité palestinienne, à cette organisation, l'OSCE, ça complète les efforts fournis à l'échelle internationale au niveau de l'UNESCO, l'Union interparlementaire et même l'ONU. Et ça favorise et encourage les efforts qui cherchent à établir la paix dans la région et établir un climat de confiance dans ce processus. Il est bien de parler du terrorisme d'une organisation, mais en contrepartie, il faut voir aussi le terrorisme de l'État envers les civils palestiniens, femmes et enfants et vieux. Et les lieux témoignent d'une dégradation dangereuse de la situation des droits de l'homme. C'est une question à laquelle vous vous intéressez. Je termine par dire que le péril est bien de donner ce statut de partenaire à une partie du conflit, la partie coloniale, et non l'autre partie victime. Merci.
Point of order, please.
Yes, a point of order from Israel.
Just in order to clarify, the representative of the Palestinian delegation here are not in any other status but guests invited by the Monaco delegation. Hosted by them, they don't have any official or unofficial status here, just to clarify what's been said by the Swedish delegate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then I shall ask Mr. Marshall if he wishes to respond to the debate briefly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for the discussions that we've had here today. This has been an exchange of words and no harm has been done. Within the OSCE, the voice of Monaco and Iceland is just as loud as the voice of the US. And that's the beauty of democracy. We want to hear the voice of the Palestinian people, and by adopting this supplementary item, we are not only encouraging both parties to reach an agreement, we are also saying to Palestinians, we trust you, live up to the standards and principles that the OSCE stands for. To both sides, we are saying, give peace a chance.
Thank you. That concludes the debate on a draft resolution. And we will now move to consider the one amendment submitted to the draft resolution. And I shall allow the proposer to speak for a maximum of 1 minute. Excuse me? Point of order?
Chiedo scusa, Presidente. Per ragioni di cortesia avevo chiesto ai colleghi islandesi di prendere loro in considerazione di non votare su questa mozione, su questo supplementary item e di rinviarlo. A questo punto mi permetto di chiedere a lei, Presidente, se è possibile verificare a favore della mia proposta l'esistenza della maggioranza dei 2/3 prevista dal nostro regolamento. Grazie.
We can first ask Mr. Marshall to respond to the question if he wishes to.
Madam Chair, I do not intend to withdraw the supplementary item.
Thank you. Just a minute. Okay, then we have been reading rules. Thank you. And Rule 25 says that at the plenary standing committee or general committee, if the chair is willing to accept such a motion, a member shall have a prior right to speak, having made a motion to postpone the consideration of an item. That means that I can decide whether we shall take under consideration to postpone this item. And I think that this proposal came so late in the debate, and I will accept the sponsor's wish to have this voted on. And if it's not adopted, it's possible to bring it in, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Bring it in at table it next time. Yes? The Italy has the floor. Thank you. Do you want to speak?
Ma grazie Presidente, io rispetto in modo assoluto le sue decisioni. Mi consenta però di non accettare l'aggettivo too late, tardivamente, perché al contrario la mia proposta è stata proprio motivata dall'andamento della discussione. Se avessi presentato la mia proposta prima degli interventi dei colleghi sarebbe stata dettata da un pregiudizio. Non era così e questo mi promettevo di far valere a lei e ai colleghi. Dopodiché la sua decisione la accetterò. Grazie.
Okay, thank you. Then we shall move on in amendment number 1. And that is Mr. Yule, and I call on Mr. Yule to propose amendment number 1.
Thank you very much. I made this amendment because I've discussed with a lot of people, also Israeli people in my country, and to be sure that some people are a bit afraid of this decision, I think it was better to make them sure that this could happen within the context of respect for the rules and law and human rights. That's the only idea here, because all what says about that this decision is doing within the importance of building two independent, visible and stable states and within a framework that guarantees the safety of the population is in this resolution. And that's why I have this amendment, this small amendment. I hope that will be so that more of the critical people will see it is possible to go together about this amendment and the resolution.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? What is the sponsor's opinion?
Iceland gained its independence in 1944 from Denmark, so it's only fitting that Denmark and Iceland see this matter through hand in hand. We support it.
Thank you. Then I shall put the amendment to vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 1 please raise their voting cards? All against? Abstentions?
Amendment.
We are voting for the first amendment. I think we do it again. We are voting over the first amendment. Will all those in favor of amendment number 1 please raise their voting cards? Those against? I think we have.
Let's count those against. 1, 2, 3.
We have to take another vote for those voting for the amendment. Please raise your voting cards. Any abstentions? Okay, 25 has voted for the amendment, 21 against, so the amendment is adopted. Okay, then we move on to vote about the resolution. Well, thank you. Would those in favor of adopting the draft resolution please raise their voting cards? Will those against raise their voting cards? Any abstentions? Okay, we have 22 votes for, 28 against, and 7 abstentions. So the draft resolution is defeated. Okay, we are almost at 6 o'clock, and we will finish our meeting today, now, and we will meet again tomorrow at 11:30. Thank you very much.